I should say before I start, if you read the program, you know that there might possibly be a sing-along. There might be. As you can hear, I'm kind of losing my voice. So if there should be a sing-along, please sing along. It will be so unpleasant for all of you if you don't. Okay. So I'm Jeff Lependorf. Before really talking about the things about, and I mean that literally, John Ashbery, I want to say a little bit about the Flowchart Foundation. We are located in Hudson, New York, about 2 hours north of New York City. It's a town where Ashbery spent his final days and a lot of time leading up to then, back and forth between New York City and Hudson, New York. And if you've taken the virtual tour of the house, it's just around the corner from what you're seeing here. If you haven't, please do, it's amazing. You can go directly to John Ashbery's nest, or you can access it through the flowchartfoundation.org website. Just go to the Ashbery Resource Center and you'll see a link there. Okay. This building is our building, this brick building. The second floor houses the Ashbery Resource Center across both storefronts. We're going to be opening our first floor gallery event space this summer. Hear more about that in a moment. Our first floor right now only has windows. We haven't opened the space yet. That is an ongoing project called Incident Report that features the scrolling LED, sometimes sound. We're not hearing the sound, I don't know why. Other various objects that appear. Oh, it's moving along. You get the idea. I think this particular piece, I forget the artist, was, I believe these were computer-generated phrases from B. de Boer, as I recall. They change every few weeks. Okay, we present a wide variety of public programs. Some of you may have experienced some of them. One of them is virtual, so anyone can take part anywhere. They're participatory. They're not really close readings, it's a bad name, but we're stuck with it. They're really slow readings. A poet we love picks usually a single poem, and they discover it together with participants. And you can take part or just, eavesdrop. This is the next set coming up in May, so please join us for those. We also do fun things like an annual night of Neo-Benchi, where we remove the sound, probably all of you know what this is, from film clips, and poets come up with new text to perform live, visible in front of the screen. Quite a lot of fun. This talk will be a kind of a show and tell of a few items from the Ashbery Resource Center, along with some bits of related Ashbery poems. Ashbery surrounded himself with many things. Many, many, many things. And many of them have direct dialogic relationships with his poems, many yet to be discovered and explored, I should say. But before talking about a few of these things, I think it's important to start with basic definitions. And so I want to try to answer the question, how do we actually know that a poem, something called a poem, is indeed a poem? Does anyone know? I'll tell you. The answer is, of course, a literal stamp saying John Ashbery poem. This is just, I had to share this, it's so much fun. He had these made when he taught at Brooklyn College. Okay, so seriously now. In addition to hundreds of print journals and books, etc., we have hundreds of linear feet of objects that do indeed connect Ashbery with his poetry and provide meaningful context for rich exploration. Many, many of these boxes we've yet to even open yet. So come on down and explore them with us. I think many of you know that Ashbery always listened to music while writing poetry. And there are references to music throughout his work, though rarely do they reference the pieces of music he was actually listening to while writing. However, here and there are exceptions if you go reading through our boxes. This one I found by chance. In this little bit from Our Youth from the Tennis Court Oath, we read the line about him listening to Chopin since we were 14 years old. And in fact, as a teenager, Ashbery made up his own library of file cards of all the LPs he would buy. And there's one card here for Chopin, and you can see that it's this piece Rondo in C major for two pianos, which, by the way, posthumously published Chopin piece, about as obscure as one could imagine. If you ask people to name, Chopin pieces, this would rarely come up. We have all of his LPs and CDs and cassette tapes, and later, of course, his classical taste became even more obscure generally, with a focus on complex contemporary works, with a good bit of Baroque, early music, mostly French, and an occasional surprise here and there. I love that woodpecker recording. I want to focus on one particular LP in the collection, which jumps out if you just don't know anything about Ashbery and you're just flipping through them. Before we get to that, in case you don't know, you should go and do this. While he was writing Self-Portrait in a Convex Mirror, he was listening to the 3rd and 4th Schoenberg string quartets. And I think it's awfully nice to, while you're reading the poems, to have that same music playing. It really does, for me at least, change the experience. I have to say that I really love this line here. They seek and cannot find the meaning of the music, particularly as, like in a lot of Ashbery, that could refer very well to how others read Ashbery's work, looking for what it means, right? So, just to share there. Here's the recording I want to focus on. Peaches and Herbs, 1978 release, Too Hot, which featured their mega hit, Reunited. I hope everyone knows it. You know it's coming. Many of you do know the story that he was in a taxi cab, heard the song playing, I believe, multiple times. I like to imagine it was an 8-track tape, I don't know. Could not get the song out of his head, ran home, went out and bought the album, played it over and over again, and then wrote a poem as essentially substitute lyrics for Peaches and Herbs Reunited. That poem is the Songs We Know Best from A Wave. This is just the first 3 quatrains. It's a long poem. And what I want to say is that I think to fully embody this poem, you really need to try singing it. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do that. Let's hope that this works. Well, it's coming out of here. That's okay. So please join me and Peaches and Herb as we sing the first 3 quatrains of the Songs We Know Best. Here we go. Just like a shadow in an empty room, like a breeze that's pointed from beyond the tomb, just like a project of which no one tells. Or did you really think that I was somebody else? Your clothes and pant legs looking out of shape, shape of the body over which they drape, body which has acted in so many scenes. But did you ever think of what that body means? It is an organ and a vice to some, a necessary evil which we all must shun. To others an abstraction and a piece of meat. But when you're looking out, you're in the driver's seat. Hey, thank you. I do want to say, for me, discovering this factoid produced for me what I think of as an Ashbery moment, which is that the title of this, The Songs We Know Best, in reading the text as well, we might assume refers to, and does, and, it's yes and with Ashbery, refers to those songs of our youth. You know, there's a nostalgia element. But the songs we know best might equally be the pop songs that we may even hate, that we cannot get out of our heads. So the songs we know best are not necessarily the ones we love the most. Okay. So moving on, in addition to music, Ashbery also loved to eat and to cook. Just for fun, here's just a tiny, tiny sampling of our extensive collection of his copper aspic fish-shaped molds. And here are some titles, covers from his cookbook collection. I love the Poison Cookbook. So, very useful. Very, very useful. Everyone should have one. And here, mainly because this is fun, but it's going to be meaningful in a moment, this is his grandmother's recipe box, which is stuffed with newspaper clippings, recipes, and other ephemera. And when Ashbery lived here in Paris in the 60s, he made his own version in the form of a scrapbook, from which he cut out recipes from the New York Herald Tribune, where he was writing art reviews as well, and other magazines, and pasted them up. Here's another image. I hope he made this cake. I really want to make one. Maybe I will at some point. For me, though, what's interesting about this scrapbook is that I think in a lot of cases the recipes are not clipped because he wanted to cook from them. They're clipped for visual reasons and they're pasted up in funny ways. To me, this is really a prototype for the collage practice that would become a lifelong activity. So fun for that reason. Another mini collection within our many collections within the Ashbery Resource Center is a large collection. It's a tiny sampling of antique game boards, and these become the foundations, as Rona knows, for many of his collages. And I just had two in that image, that picture that we're seeing here, become collages. He would have them photographed, printed out, and then collage on them. But we have all the actual game boards. There we go. Here's an image showing, again, tiny fraction of many, many, many VHS tapes, mainly taped from television, of movies that he loved, mostly old movies. He also really loved to watch TV, but before we get to that, the fact is he loved movies, and there's a lot of influence, a lot of research yet to be done here. Here's a nice bit from the new Spirit, and I've highlighted this one bit I think is quite lovely about what movies can mean. Ashbery did express that he wrote a little bit of film criticism. I will share a little bit in a second, but he did say on numerous occasions, I understand from David Kermani, his partner, that he would have loved to have written a lot more film criticism. It's just not what he was paid to do, basically what it came down to. But he loved watching television, and while watching, David Kermani would generally be at his side, and Ashbery earlier would do it himself, would fill notebooks or turn to David and say, write that down. And this is very late. This is from 2017, just a couple of pages. So you can tell right away which is Ashbery's handwriting, quite hard to make out at this point, and which is David's explications nearby. And I'll just share one example. These lines would often then appear in poems in the earlier notebooks. For a long time, David would keep track, cross them out, and then write what poem they appeared in. Because John would sometimes recycle them, and one can find certain lines reappearing in Ashbery, and they're often television lines, frequently from Julia Child, which is true. Once they were watching America's Test Kitchen, popular cooking show. This is not the actual episode. I couldn't find it to get a still, although I know which one. But as you see, there are sous chefs in the background, and Ashbery was taken by a very comely lad, sous chef in the back. And after the commercial break, when they returned, they just focused on the chefs, and there were no more sous chefs in back. And Ashbery turned to David Kermani and said, "What happened to Cutie Pie?" And David then responded, "Cutie Pie went bye-bye." And here it is in a poem from Breezeway. And now a commercial. Oh, actually, can hand me one? So a book is coming out in June. I have a few copies here. This shameless plug, but I got to edit this. It's a handsome volume, but David's Runner Books put this out. It's late Ashbery writing, so if you know of reported sightings, which collects his art writing through '86, which is when he concluded being a staff writer. He did still keep writing a lot of art criticism, wonderful stuff, appeared in various places. So this collects late art writing, together with contemporaneous poems, so that one might draw connections between them, and also playlists of music he was listening to at the time. So the publisher made me do this. They sent me, I have 12 here. It will be 12.95 in June, but you can buy them from me for 10 euros or 11 bucks, something like that. But anyway, no pressure, but if you're interested, I have them. PayPal, Venmo, it all works. And then one other commercial. We're doing our first gathering, much like this, called 13 Million Pillars of Grass, focusing on a double occasion. The 60th anniversary of the tennis court oath being published, and also what would have been Ashbery's 95th birthday in July. And so we're inviting people. We already have, I will say, quite a full roster and some amazing stuff. Dance, music performances, scholarly papers, it's all in there. And you will recognize many of the names of people, and a couple of people here are already doing things. We close the deadline to submit proposals, much like here, 5 to 10 minute things. However, if anyone here would like to do something, please just let us know, even your intention. You can come up with the details later, and we'll work you in. We haven't yet told anyone if they're in or out, except for people here and you're in, people here. But we will be saying no to a few things. But we don't want to do that, unless we have better things come in. So let me know. And that's all I have to say. There's a lot more to discover in the Ashbery Research Center. Please come visit us. Craig in a moment is going to tell you a little bit about our catalog, but we have not gone through most of the things, and it's amazing stuff. And we also feel free, welcome to contact us and ask if we have things or to find things for you. Some cool stuff. So this is an ad from Comme des Garçons that Ashbery did. It's just fun stuff like that, and amazing stuff really for better understanding his poetry. Thanks.